Good evening, everybody. How's everyone doing? This is Dave Eldon here with my friend Dalton Grimes. We've got a special treat for you tonight. This is going to be amazing. Don't you think so?
I do.
Yeah?
You see, David, you and I have been doing this for a while now.
We sure
started
have.
in what, January?
January. We started
right?
at the very beginning of the year. We've been doing this for a solid 4 months now.
Yeah, this is phenomenal. You know what? Good job, teammate.
Yeah, nice teamwork.
Thanks.
And
I think we do make a pretty good team.
We do make a great team.
The only problem is we're still looking for a third.
Gosh, what if we had a third person? How insane would that be?
Yeah, we could play all three matches.
Oh, yeah.
And we wouldn't just have to scoop.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they changed the rules on that recently. Well, I guess they changed the MTR about that. They didn't actually change what the rules was.
Hey, did you see what I did there?
Yeah, I did.
All right.
So we are playing about team format events. And this is going to be kind of interesting. I know everyone loves watching the auto card thing come up, but there isn't probably going to be a whole lot of that coming up today because we're going to be talking about team format events, and there isn't a lot of rules and policy questions.
Just start looking up like cards that say team in it.
Yeah, the three-headed goblin, is that what it's called from Unstable? Yeah, there's there's a card that's like that. It has like
there's two-headed giant in Dominaria.
There is not two-headed giant of 4 eyes, just two-headed giant. Just two-headed giant.
That's it.
That's it. Yeah.
No, that's not what we're talking about.
No, it's not. We will have a special treat for you guys when we have the two-headed giant episode coming up in the future.
We are not talking about two-headed giant.
No, we're talking about a different type of team events today.
Yeah. So you might think, oh, well, two-headed giant, there's two people, you're a team.
That is a team event.
And that sounds pretty good to me. But how about them two-headed giant GPs?
Boy,
I was really 2HGGP.
I was really hoping to avoid having to talk about that today because it was before I started judging. It was one of those things where I'm very happy to say that was before I started judging because none of the stories that I heard about it were about how fun it was. There's a lot of stories about how maybe it was a little confusing to certain people, and maybe sometimes that's not a great GP experience.
So we're going to have a completely separate video of that sometime in the future.
Yeah, just stay tuned.
Maybe you could use your future site to... See, I'm going to try to throw you these bones.
Tweet at us.
So that you can pull the auto card up.
You know the auto card takes time to pull up, right? Like I would have to start out typing while you were saying it in order for it to work.
That's fine. You can still just pull it up.
Yeah, I could. I would have to predict what it was. That's the real question.
It could be like a little game. Like I start to describe something and then you have to pull it up.
Yeah, that would be a good one.
Yeah, it just seems pretty chaotic to me. See, perfect. Yeah, excellent.
We're a great team.
So, why don't you go ahead? Let's talk about team formats.
Yes. Okay. So the team format events that we are going to be talking about are going to be the team format events with 3 players on them, and we've had a few GPs like this in the last couple of years, and I've been to a lot of them, and they are awesome. I've been to one of every type so far. No, I haven't. Because I haven't been to a team constructed. That was an SCG. I've been to team constructed SCGs, but I haven't been to a GP that's team trios constructed. GP Toronto happening this weekend, and I didn't go to it. I'm going to the SCG instead.
Are you lying?
What?
To our viewers?
Wait, was there a GP that I went to that was the team trios format?
No, you said you did.
Oh, well, that was making a mistake. That's different.
All right. Oh my gosh, Dave Eldon can make mistakes.
Yeah, I'm not a robot, guys. Promise.
Okay, so back on track. So I don't know about you, I love team formats, and part of what I love about Magic is being able to play with other people.
Yes,
and so
that's what makes these events so popular.
That these events become very popular is that you want to go and hang out with your friends. That play group that you play against. You don't want to be separate all day. You don't want to just be on that side of the room.
I'm going to tell you guys right now, if you've never played in a tournament, this is so huge. And judges underestimate how huge it is. But when you're at a tournament, you are always with your friends. Okay, it isn't like I finished my match and then I have to stumble around for 20 or 30 minutes not knowing what to do because my friends are always there, and that is enormous. That is an enormous thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, it makes the players love them. Judges like them in most cases, but I
like them.
There are a lot of extra challenges for them, and that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about some of the stuff. So what are we thinking about? Well, if you've never been to a team format event, you should. It's great. But here's some like basic pointers to kind of get everybody on the same page here. So rather than playing individually, it's 3-player teams, right? We talked about that, and the thing that makes this a million times better than two-headed giant GPs is that it's not all one big match, right? Like it's me and my opponent, Dalton and his opponent, and then our third teammate and some third opponent. And so because of the fact that it's like 3 individual matches taking place, it takes out like a lot of the confusion that happens as a result of team format events.
Your team doesn't go to combat together. You don't have your draw step together. There's no attacking this player or that player. It's just like you're playing your own game of Magic, your own match.
Yes. And
you have to worry about yourself.
Yep. So, okay. The term match is kind of ambiguous in this context because you could be referring to either the big match that like all 3 of the players on each team are contesting, or you could be talking about any of the 3 individual matches. So for this broadcast, we're going to be using the term individual match and team match in order to refer to both of those. So hopefully that is going to no. There's no second A.
Here?
Yeah, that one's gone.
Okay.
So yeah, we'll be using the terms team match and individual match to refer to those where where it's not obvious based on context. I'm not sure why we were bringing this card up, but Dalton thought it was important.
There's a sub match.
Yeah, it's actually a sub game.
That's what we're talking about.
It's a sub game.
Sub games, right?
Sub matches. Hey, that's actually very interesting.
No, so you have your own match to worry about. You play best of, first to 2, not best of 3, first to 2.
That's important.
With your opponent, and that could take you 10 minutes. That could take you till time in the round. Unless you're both playing like Burn or Infect or something. Boy.
Could.
But what's nice about that is, you have your match there, and then all of a sudden, bam, friends.
Yeah, you can help your friends with their match.
And you know what?
Yeah,
you can talk to them.
That is great. That is a huge thing right there. Because how many times have you been watching your friend play Magic and they just pump massively, and you're
they're about to.
Oh, geez.
They're about to, and you want to say something,
but you can't. You really do. Be OA, and they'd get you would get a match loss. They would actually not get a match loss unless they solicited that advice.
Yeah, so...
But you can't do that because then you get a match loss. But now, in a team format event, you can, because teams can talk to each other all the time. And that is an amazing thing.
Yes.
We'll be talking more about the communication rules a little bit later in the broadcast.
So, back to the, individual matches and team matches. This does lead to a little interesting.
It is kind of weird
aspect with the scorekeepers. How this
works. Yes. So this is something, and I didn't believe this the first time I did a team format event, and actually second GP.
At every event that I've been to with team formats, I'm always asked, "How do you fill out the match slip?"
I mean, it doesn't come up very much for players. So yeah, my second GP was actually team sealed, and I didn't believe this when they told it to me because it was so weird. But yeah, the way that it works in the scorekeeping software, both Whir and Walter are like this. But the way it works is that all winning match results are recorded the same. So if everybody on your team wins, that's exactly the same as if 2 people win and 1 person loses, or even if 2 people draw and 1 person wins. All those get reported the same in Walter and Whir. So really, you just need to know which team
0,
won. Yeah.
0-0-1.
Yeah, same thing.
Or 0-1.
Exactly.
You have 3 options.
Yeah, and so draws work the same way. Any drawing result is recorded the same in the software.
Ooh, one thing I didn't look up that you might know. Okay. How does this affect Planeswalker points?
Every time I judge some event, some player is like, "Hey, judge, how many Planeswalker points is this?" And I was like, "Bro, I don't even know what a Planeswalker point is."
Does the whole team? I think the whole team gets it.
I want to say everybody
gets the winning.
I'm not I'm gonna pull the judge card and be like, I literally have no clue how it works.
We don't.
In the chat, someone in the chat who's a player can tell us how it works, because I literally have no idea how it works and I have no reation to know how it works.
I am not on that GP grind.
No, I am not trying to get those pro
I'm not
points.
looking for
buys.
I was.
Actually,
I'm on the other side of the.
Yeah. It is not something I have any idea about. So
nope.
it could be everybody gets the same, That's the only way they could do it, right? Like,
I would assume.
yeah,
Because it's the only way you could track
yeah,
it.
chat, help us out if you know.
So if you are horrible at Magic, but you know two people who are really good,
Then you can do what like LSV and what's his name did at that one GP. They had like, it was a team sealed GP, and they built their pool, so it was like 2 like insane decks and 1 crap deck. And the guy who like had to pilot the 1 crap deck didn't win any match wins, but it was okay because LSV and whoever the other guy was like straight up boss moded the entire tournament, and so he got to the top 4. That's another difference that we'll maybe talk about later. It's not the top 8; it's top 4.
top 4.
Right.
Whoa.
So, okay. As a consequence of this, the fact that like all the team match results get recorded the same way, no matter like whether it's a 2-0 win or a 3-0 win or anything, because of that, as soon as 2 people on a team are done and they both won, then you don't really need to play the third match out. And that's important because during end of round, if a situation like that comes up, then you can take their match slip, and then you won't have to worry about that table for end of round.
They can play.
Yeah, I mean they
fine.
can for fun, but like don't like hold the tournament up waiting for their match results slip.
I've had a few occasions where I'll come up to a table and I'll be doing the end of round checks, and I see 2 people very focused on a match, and I ask them where their match slip is, and they say, "Oh, we're just playing this out." The reason being, they really want to know how that match is going to go.
Yeah, I mean, like if it's a sealed event, you got like more reps with your deck. If it's a constructed event, maybe it's an interesting matchup that you like more experience with.
Maybe or
hey, maybe you don't want to sit around for the time in between the rounds. Maybe you want to like actually be doing something. Maybe you want to be playing Magic at this Magic tournament.
Maybe.
So lots of different reasons why that might be.
So as long as the match slip's taken up, assuming it can be at this point, then there's no problem with that. I mean, they should be present for their next match.
Yeah. Now be diplomatic about it. Don't be like, this match doesn't matter, guys. So give us your results. It's like, come on.
I don't care about you, and so I'm gonna need that paper.
Yeah, like be diplomatic when you ask for it. But yeah, like once 2 people on a team win, then the match is essentially over as far as the scorekeepers are concerned. So you can take their slip up.
Sure.
So any questions about what team format events are and what we're going to be talking about? This is basically kind of the interesting stuff here, the like setting up the groundwork for the interesting stuff, I guess. The more interesting stuff will be coming a little bit later.
To give you a second to write those questions, I'll remind you, we are looking for a 3rd team member here at Judging for the Win. You might say that we're offering our fans here a second chance on this.
We're giving you a second to have a chance to type them in. That's what that was the joke. You see how smart of a play that was, but it didn't work because we're not as good of a team as we could be. But if you were a 3rd person who like wanted to be the stream boss or monitor the chat and tell us to look at it every now and then, or pull up all these cards, the auto card helper really helps a lot. I will tell you that. Like it makes it insanely easier to pull the cards up, but you still have to type them. Or if you have like the list, like I a lot of the time beforehand I'll have the list, so it won't be as bad. So okay, now let's talk about what kind of team events there is. So there's been 3 so far that have been tried as GPs. Like I'm sure that there's been all kinds of wacky other types of team events.
When is my Emperor team event?
Oh boy! Just right after the like A to Z chaos draft.
Onslaught block constructed.
Mercadian Masks block was one of my favorites. I really love those Rebel deck mirrors, and so yeah. So the real ones that they have is Team Sealed, which is basically like each team gets 12 booster packs. And all the cards from those booster packs is the team pool.
Now, David.
Yeah.
I went to my pre-release, okay?
Yeah.
I'm something of a pre-release expert.
A grinder, if you...
And I get 6 packs.
Yeah.
So shouldn't my team get 18?
Okay, so this is kind of an interesting thing about team format events, is that like if you pool the packs together, it makes your decks like way better. way better. If it was 18 packs, like the decks would be like standard level decks.
Everyone
basically.
just gets half a box
Because-
to mess around with.
Because what will happen is, like, in a normal sealed event, let's say I'm in, like, white-blue, right? So, like, I'm going to be playing all my A and B tier white and blue cards, but, like, all my A and B tier black, green, and red cards is going to be on the bench because I'm not playing those cards, right? So, but in a team format event, I have double the number of packs to pull my A tier white and blue cards from, and all of my A tier of the other three colors isn't going to be sitting on the bench because I have two teammates who I can give those cards to. So actually, like, the team format limited decks is actually generally going to be better than a, you know, if you were just going to open 6 packs and make a sealed deck out of it. So yeah, that's why it's only 12 and it's not 18. But yeah, every team gets 12 booster packs, and it's like 8-4 split if it's like in between a block. So you get like 4 of one and 8 of the other. And so what you do is you divide those cards among your team, and it doesn't have to be like an even division. You can like give all the red cards to one player and all the blue cards to another player, no matter what the numbers end up being. But yeah, at that point, each of the cards gets assigned to one of the 3 players' pools, and then you have like a normal sealed build at that point. So that's how team sealed works. It's important that you do that because like if you have some really good sideboard card that like 2 different people can play, only one person can actually play that sideboard card. You have to
the day.
Yeah, that day. And hey, if you scrub out, you can like put it in your like sideboard
Your brawl deck.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the important thing, is it's not like each person registers their sideboard for each match you play. Once you register that on your deck list, that is yours forever. I mean, maybe
In that
like
tournament.
That tournament. So, you know, round 1, I can't say, well, it was in my sideboard and it was okay, but David's also playing that color, so now he can
And it
use
would
it.
move the needle a lot more in his deck than in mine. Yeah. So yeah, like that's basically, you can't share the cards. It's not like one big pool for everybody. It's one big pool that everybody gets to take whatever they need out of, and then after that,
The
point,
river breaks off and
Yeah.
flows into 3 little streams that
Exactly.
can never touch again.
Yeah. So that's why it's important to like have everybody have their same deck or their own deck box in these.
Yeah, so the next type of team event that you'll see is probably one of my favorites to watch.
to Toronto this week.
David is very upset he's not going to Toronto.
No, like
this week.
I was gonna get to play in Toronto, and I was gonna get to be the legacy player in Toronto, but like our standard player backed out on us, so we didn't get to do that.
Well, you kind of just
unfortunately.
spilled it for me.
Yeah.
So Team Trios is an event, and probably my favorite to watch because of the diversity.
It is really.
You'll have 3 players on your team. One is playing Legacy, one is playing Modern, and one is playing Standard.
Yep.
And from there, you each play. So you're each playing a different format in Magic. And a lot of times, if you're ever watching coverage of this, they'll try to cycle through the matches that you're watching. But it's really great because you don't have to worry about, you know, like, oh, well, maybe I want to play humans, maybe he wants to play humans. You don't have to worry about that because you're not playing the same format. You know, everyone gets to do their own thing. And
We'll be talking about that little dynamic a little bit later.
yes,
Too.
and so if David shows up to the table with his lovely Legacy, what do you play?
Deathblade. That's my favorite.
Dave shows up with Deathblade, I don't have to worry about like being a modern scrub and being a copycat and running my Deathblade because I'm not playing that format.
Yeah, well, there's another reason why you can't play Deathblade in Modern.
Yeah, maybe like a little bit.
Ordinarily, Jace is the card that I'd flash up there, but they finally came to their senses on that one. So you still got Stoneforge Mystic and Jit though too. So we got lots.
I never
of
cared about Jace.
No, it's low key. It's not great.
No, it's not what the format needs.
No, like the control deck did not need Jit. Now Teferi, I heard, is actually like kind of a sweet Magic card. So maybe
he's doing some work.
Maybe try that one out instead.
So, anyways, each player has their own match. Legacy player plays Legacy. Modern plays Modern on your opponent's team, of course.
Yeah, that'd be
nothing goofy there.
That'd be a sweet alt format.
And then you just play your matches. Same rules apply. Once two people win on the same team, your team match is done, and you can report. You can still feel free to play. That is fine, assuming you have time in the round. But that's what you're looking at, and each is a constructed deck, of course. But
yep,
I enjoy it.
So, and then the final type that we're gonna that we've done as a GP format is Team Unified Constructed. Now they just had their first I was a judge actually at the first Team Unified Modern GP, which was, do you know when that was?
No.
It was San Antonio last year. It was almost exactly a year ago. It was a little bit more than a year ago.
I was not a judge then.
Yeah, so San Antonio last year is Team Unified Modern, the first Team Unified GP that they had, and it was a blast. It was awesome. And so far, Modern is the only Team Unified constructed format that they've done a GP for. They've done, like, they did one in Barcelona at the end of the year in December. I did not go to that one. And then I want to say that there was another one earlier this year, those Team Modern.
Not sure.
So that's there's one in Detroit coming up that I will be playing at. So, you know, come on and say hi to me at Detroit in September. But yeah, Team Unified Modern is, you know, it could be any format, but we're going to be talking about Modern because that's the only one that they've been doing it. The way that one works is it's exactly like the other ones. So everybody comes in with their own Modern deck, except it's unified. And the unified means that everybody's deck put together has to be, you know, legal. So, yeah, I know that makes sense, right? So what that means exactly is if I am playing a card,
Lightning bolt.
Yeah, like lightning bolt. That means that no one else on the team can have lightning bolts. Even if I only have one lightning bolt, that means they can't have any lightning bolts. So it used to be the opposite, but they changed it. It used to be that if I had one, then that means that the other two guys could have like three put together. But that's not how it works anymore. In my opinion, it makes it a little bit less. It makes a little bit less sense. But you know, I guess this is it's a lot easier for deck checks, right? Because like you don't have to count up how many. This guy has three, and then this guy has one. Oh, this guy has one also. So you don't have to like look at all the team deck lists together
and then decide like who has to lose the lightning bolt.
Yeah, it'd be really awkward to kind of try and decide that. So yeah, like from that standpoint, it makes sense. But like I like it better. If you know, if I own four, then I can play all four, but whatever. So yeah, that's how Team Unified constructed works. It's the same way, you know, there's three matches and they play. But now you might have noticed something kind of interesting, right? Like in team trios, it's easy, right? Like if it's like I sit down and my opponent plays a turn one Tundra and I'm playing standard, then we know we got a problem, right? But if you're playing Team Unified sealed or Team Unified constructed or sealed, that problem can still happen. Like you might sit across from the wrong opponent, but there's literally no way you could tell that they're playing the wrong format because everybody's playing the same format. So a lot of GP organizers or SCG does this too. They have like wristbands, different colored wristbands for all the players. So like you'll be able to look and be like, oh, you know, I'm the red wristband player, and so opponent's supposed to be the red wristband player on their team. So that like keeps situations like that from happening sometimes. They're super awkward when they do come up. There was an article just this week where one of the pro players wrote about that. And the fix per policy now, the fix is kind of field batty. If you want more details on that, you can look at that article. It was on Channel Fireball. So it is kind of field batty. What happens is if someone starts playing the wrong match and the timer has started, then you're tardy. You didn't show up to your assigned seat at the right time. So one of the two teams is going to randomly have two game losses, and one of the teams is going to randomly not. Because like let's be honest here, like, you know, which team randomly sat at the right spot is actually not something you can come up with as a normal person. Like, you know, nobody's out there. But that's what you have to do. You really want to be on top of it if you're playing in sealed or you know, one of these team format events. Because if you sit down and you play like you're the A player and you're playing against the C player, if you're in the middle, obviously it can't happen, right? Because like if you're the B player, you have to be playing in the middle, so there's only one middle. But if you're on the end, then you have to like make sure you're playing against the right person on the other end.
Nope, can't find it. No, it's a very interesting article that's worth a read.
Yeah, it's a good perspective. So while we're working on that, we can ask the chat if there's any questions about what the different types of team format events are, and you know, we start thinking about, what's different between them is the next thing that we're going to talk about.
Yeah. So possibly the big thing, and this is something that we hinted on earlier, is that you are allowed to talk to your teammates.
Yeah.
Which makes sense. You're here together, you're playing together, you can help each other. That's fine. If David is over here playing his legacy deck and I'm over here playing modern, but I know a thing or two about the situation, maybe I want him to play this card because I know the interaction, or I know that something could help him and be better for him, I can tell him, and that's great, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong there. There's no outside assistance we need to worry about. There's no communication policy violation. It's all fair game. As long as I am not sharing anything that I'm not entitled to know, then there's no issues. Now, the time that this could become a problem, and possibly the biggest potential for abuse, is after I have become a spectator. And what that means is if I have gotten up from my match, or if I have maybe gone to the restroom, or went to go buy a card, or maybe I wanted to go grab a soda while my match was over. If at any point in time I did one of those things without asking a judge to watch me, or without any judge's permission, and I have left the match, I have become a spectator. And at that point, even though I registered on their team, even though I maybe won them a match, an individual match, maybe I might have, maybe the guy next to me is playing my cards, like cards I own, then I am still a spectator and I cannot talk. And the reason for that is, well, what if I stood up from the table and I went to the bathroom, and then as I walked back, I kind of moseyed behind my teammate's opponent and maybe saw that his hand was this, and that, and then I sit down and I start helping my teammate from there.
Yeah,
obviously that's a problem.
That's
I
what
don't
that
like
rule,
that.
That's what that rule is supposed to be about.
So what's important with this is if you ever do need to use the restroom,
Call a judge.
Call a judge.
Which was what you should be doing anyway.
Definitely. But in this case, it can lead to a lot worse issues.
Oh, yeah.
Because you don't want to get an outside assistance match loss on your team.
And now, if you get a match loss, what does that mean?
So if you do get a match loss on this is not your team's match loss.
Right.
This is your match loss. So when you sit down for your next game, because the one you're currently playing is over, you will receive a match loss. Your two teammates will play, and as soon as the first game is over, or the first match is over, individual match for them is done. If you won, then it comes down to the third person. If they won, then that team match is complete.
Yeah, so basically, like,
it feels bad.
Match loss means like for you, not for the whole team, just for the person who committed it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what's really sad is if the match loss happens in such a way that, for example, I leave the table and then you ask me.
Yeah.
Then you could come into a situation where, like, both of us have met the definition of a match loss, and that's
gross.
Oh boy, oh boy, that's like an actual match loss.
Yeah.
So don't do that. Don't do that.
There's also an issue. If a lot of players when they're playing, assume it's David, me, and someone else here. If David finishes his match, he might scoot over and go in between us. But if David stands up from the table like this...
Don't do that. No.
You can't see me. Like this, and sort of looks over and maybe could get a peek at what the
doesn't even
opponent's
matter.
playing.
If you're standing up, you can see their cards.
Uh-huh.
Like, unless they're, like, specifically trying to keep it so that you can't see their cards, it's very plausible that you could have looked at their cards.
Mm-hmm.
So that's like the same thing. When you're moving and like it's a common practice to, like, scoot your seat over, so that you can, like, be in between the two people who are still playing. Don't stand up when you do that. Like, keep crouched down when you do that, because if you stand up, there's a very real chance.
Put your hands up, cover your face.
Yeah, or hey, tell your opponents, hey, I'm gonna, like, move over, so, like, put your
cover
like
up your cards,
put your, like, hands face down so that I won't be able to see them when I move over. Like, but yeah, like, do that so that you don't have a chance to see their cards, because again, that's the other thing that we're concerned about, is we don't want there to be a situation where you could leave your match, get some information, and then come back into the match with information that you wouldn't have had access to otherwise.
Yeah, so definitely something to watch out for and be aware of. because it would feel really bad to get a match loss for yourself that will affect your entire team.
Oh goodness, yes.
You might not have friends after that event.
Yeah, maybe your team will have a different team.
Mm-hmm.
So that is one thing. Any questions about how communication rules are different in team format of events?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah. So the last thing that we were going to talk about.
We're just so good at explaining things.
Well, we kind of are.
Mm-hmm.
So this is another important thing to think about when you're doing a team format event is slow play, right? So in principle, now like let's think about this logically here, right? Like we have the same number of matches going on as like an equivalent individual format event, right?
Yeah, so let's think. If you have 100 teams in an event, that's 50 matches. But in theory, that's 150
it's three
individual matches.
Yeah. Exactly right. So if you think about, like, if you're comparing it to an individual person tournament, you have basically a third of, the same number of matches are going on, like, between player to player. But some of those matches aren't going to need to finish in order for the scorekeeper to have the results. Mm-hmm. So hypothetically, it should be quicker, right?
You would think. In theory, only 66% of matches ever have to finish.
Sure.
That seems pretty cool. And you would think, like, oh, well, why isn't it done sooner?
That's not how it works. That's not how it works at all.
That's kind of the sound I make whenever it gets down to about 5 minutes left in a round and the team's talking about every possible decision they could possibly make.
Yeah, so like the issue is that, like, when you're talking about, like, what play that I should make, that takes a lot more time than if I'm just thinking to myself what play I should make.
Yeah.
And the other problem is that, like, teams don't notice that, because as long as I'm entertained, for example, if I'm participating in a discussion, as long as I'm entertained, I'm not, like, counting this as time that's boring. And the time that's boring is like when people start having an issue. So as a result, people will, like, talk and think a lot longer than they would in an individual event when they have, like, two teammates who they can/want to run all their decisions by. Mm-hmm. And so because of that, slow play is a ever-present threat in a competitive rel team format event.
When it comes to slow play, just because the player is talking about their decision does not mean they are entitled to more time.
Yeah.
If I am going over every possible course of action I could possibly have with my two teammates, that doesn't matter. I could have 0 cards in hand. I could be playing an individual match with 0 cards in hand, and I should be entitled to about the same amount of time as I am with a hand of 7 in a team event. There's no difference there. You are looking for slow play.
So the other thing that can happen is that, like, let's say I'm playing and I have this really tough spot, and so I need Dalton's opinion. Like, what would you do in this spot here, Dalton?
That one.
Right? So, like, Dalton is having to, like, think about stuff that's not even a result.
I was supposed to think.
That's not even a part of his match. Mm-hmm. And so, like, that's going to happen, like, both ways. So each match is going to have, like, more thinking involved in it, because there's going to be, like, times when I'm thinking about my own stuff, and there's going to be times when I'm thinking about my teammates' stuff, and the same thing is going to be true for everybody on the team.
And that also comes in, if I'm still playing my match and David starts asking me questions, well, now his match is paused, as is mine, so that I can help answer this question. Mm-hmm. So that's possibly 2 chances for slow play that you might see from one team. Mm-hmm. So be aware of that. So another slow play situation that can happen, and this is kind of a scummy angle shoot thing, and we don't really have a good policy to cover this, but what will happen is in a team unified event, I'll be playing, or we'll be shuffling up for game 1. Sure.
And, player B will, like, start their match, and then player C will start their match. But, like, the people on the other teammates will be, like, looking. And the reason that they're looking is because it's team unified constructed, right? Which means that if I'm playing Tron, neither of my teammates can be playing Tron. So if my opponent sitting across from me is playing Tron, that could change what I want to do. Mm-hmm. So if I know for a fact that one of those two people led with like Tower Go or Tower Map Go, then we know that this guy isn't playing Tron. Mm-hmm. He's going to be on like some other deck that doesn't have any conflict cards in common with Tron. So as a result of that, what you sometimes are going to see is you're going to sometimes see someone like shuffling at the very beginning of the game, at the very beginning of the match, because they're trying to like suss out what the person that they're playing against is based on what cards that they see out of their two teammates. And again, if you take an unreasonable amount of time to perform game actions, such as shuffling and presenting at the start of game one, that is slow play. And you can't do that because slow play is a thing that should be getting called. And so, yeah, you want to look out for that situation too, because that is another thing that you can see come up in a team format event, especially like unified constructed, of course.
Yeah, and the same could also go for mulliganing. You know, if I'm looking at my hand of 7 and I'm like, well,
it's like, okay, this hand has like no removal spells, but like it's got a good plan in the late game, and it's like, oh, bro, it's like Tron and Jun, so this guy's probably on humans. Nope, mulligan. So you need those removal spells against the humans decks, but you don't need them against the Tron decks. So like it definitely can like affect what your decision making is.
And it's not an issue of outside assistance.
No,
like you are entitled to that information.
Yeah.
You are allowed to know what your opponent's team is playing, but it shouldn't affect how long you take to make your decisions.
Yeah. It happens in limited too, because what'll happen is it'll be like, okay, so that's their red player and then that's their white player, so this guy's probably on like green
blue,
and black. Yeah, so like that's another thing that'll happen, because again, like it's a shared pool, right? So you're not going to probably have so many good cards of one color that you're going to split it between the team. Mm-hmm. Or you're probably only going to have one color that's split between. So like the cards that you see your two opponents playing is going to affect what cards are left over for the person you're playing against. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's a thing that can happen. Another thing that can happen, and this one is maybe I want to say like a little bit less of an issue in my opinion, but it, like some people think it's more of an issue. So like let's say I'm playing a really fast deck, right? So if I'm playing a really fast deck and my match is going to be like over soon, what's going to happen is I'm going to end with my match and I'll be in the giving my teammates advice phase, right?
Is that a new phase in the turn?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a phase in the match. It's like not in the turn, but it's like within a whole match.
Okay.
There's the giving teammates advice phase.
Okay.
So what'll happen is like I played Infect, I finished both my games really quick, and so now it's like halfway through. So what I can do is I can read my notes now, because it's after my match, and that's a time when I'm legally allowed to read my notes. But there isn't something in the rules that says that my notes have to only be relevant to what I'm playing. So what you can do is you can write down like all of the important stuff for all three of you, and because I am legally allowed to read my notes and my teammates are legally allowed to talk to me, that means that I can read stuff off of my notes and tell it to them. So that is another consideration that you might have. The rules do not prohibit this at all. This is completely within what you are legally allowed to do. Mm-hmm. One thing that some people might point to is like, oh well, you're only allowed like 1 page or like 2 pages or something. There is no hard limit. It does not say in the MTR that your notes are limited to 1 page. The only thing is that
vague.
Yeah, the only thing that it really says is that basically we can pull the thing up. It's going to be the MTR here.
Yeah.
But basically the cliff notes of what it says is that it's going to be in section 2.11. Yeah. So we got it. It's gonna be a brief set of notes. There it is, made before the match.
They are not required to reveal these notes to their opponents. These notes must be removed from the player before the beginning of the game. Excessive quantities of notes, more than a sheet or 2, are not allowed and may be penalized as slow play.
So what that sentence has been interpreted as at events that I've played at and judged at is that as long as you are not taking an undue amount of time to consult your notes, and as long as the judge believes that it is reasonable that a person could parse through that and take the information that they need out of them in a reasonable amount of time, then that is not slow play and you're okay to do it. So yeah, that is another tricky trick that you might see someone come up with in a team format event. Again, completely legit and very, very intelligent strategic decision, taking advantage of it. I have not actually seen that happen, but I've heard rumors of it happening. So
Magic does reward the people with the better knowledge.
And that is definitely like a thing.
Better knowledge.
Yeah, I mean, like that's a thing you can do. It's legally allowed, so let's do it. So yeah, that's another kind of difference that you might run into. So let's see, any other interesting differences before we talk about the logistical issues of team format events? And this is another really interesting topic in my opinion. I'm a big like logistics loving guy, and so I have a lot of. It's really exciting to be team format events because there still haven't been that many of them. So we're still in the process of kind of like figuring out what the best practices is. So for me, that's exciting because I can really dig down deep and think about like, okay, what would I be doing differently? What would I think is the best way to do this task? What do I think is what we should be focusing on in this area or that area? And so there are some distinct logistical challenges that come from team format events. Mm-hmm. So what do you think is like the biggest one? Well, what would you say is the most interesting or the most significant logistic challenge that is specific to team events?
Table numbers.
Table numbers is a big one because what will happen is if you are on a team, the team will be taking 3 seats contiguously, and that means that there's 3 chairs for each match instead of just 1. And that means that the table numbers are kind of ambiguous because you need to tell each person which seat that they're sitting in. You need to tell them that because otherwise what's going to happen is my A player is going to play against their C player and we'll both get like tardinesses. Mm-hmm. So that's no good. You can't do that. So you need to have each individual seat assigned, but at the same time you don't need all that in like the scorekeeping. So if you go to a big event nowadays, that's what it's like. In the future they might change this, but the way it is now is they'll have match numbers and then they'll have table numbers, and the table numbers will be like normal table numbers like you would see at an individual format event, and the match numbers will increment. There will be 1 match number per match, which would be a team match, not an individual match. So yeah, that's a good one. That's a very significant difference in between team format and individual format events. Any other like big ones come to mind? We already kind of talked about one, which is like trying to make sure your A players are playing against their A players, because again, there's rather stiff penalties involved if your A player plays against their C player for one of the teams.
I'm thinking of pairings.
Pairings
always confuses me.
Another very important one. So one very interesting thing is that the results slip will not say all of the the names of the players in certain cases. So what will happen is it'll be only last names in a lot of cases. Now SCG has their own like overlay, so at SCG Opens this is actually different. They have like the full first and last name for everybody on each team. So that's great if you have that. And they might be incorporating something like that into Walter, so who knows if I'm going to look like a fool several months in the future when they roll that feature out. But right now, it's kind of weird because what'll happen is you get team like Jones, Jones, and Jones, and they're all brothers, so like their last names is all going to be the same, and it'll be you won't know which person is getting the penalty because it'll just say Jones on the slip. So you have to like ask the person for what their first name is in that case. Mm-hmm. If you're assigning a penalty, you will have to figure out what their first name is by asking them in order to assign it to the correct person and tell the scorekeeper which one of them is supposed to be getting it.
You should also have a table number for the individual match, which can help.
Yeah.
But obviously having multiple ways of indicating the right player is very helpful.
Yeah, it sure is.
So always double check, always make sure.
All right, so that's another one. Anything else you were thinking of? I have like a big one that hasn't even been touched upon yet, and this is actually something that I've been involved with for the last couple of team format events that I was a part of. So, and and that is Dec Checks.
Ah.
So Dec Checks is actually very, very interesting in a team format event because there's a lot of differences between team format events and individual format events. And so one of the biggest things is that because you're a team, it's generally considered to be a good idea to keep the team deck lists together. Mm-hmm. So everybody on the team will have their deck lists grouped together when we're sorting them. And that has a couple of important consequences. One of them is that each the number of deck lists that you have to like sort and file and go through is effectively reduced by a factor of a third, because since each team has all their deck lists together, you only have to worry about each team's deck list instead of each individual player's. So that's great. That is actually one in a very small list of things that are actually easier with the team format event than they would be in a normal format event. Now, where things get a little bit dicier is doing deck checks, right? Physically doing a deck check on a team. So you don't deck check like all 3 matches. You only deck check one of the 3 individual matches in the team match. So one of the big things that you have to make sure you say is when you're swooping, you have to be sure you say, hey, you two matches can continue to play as normal. We're only deck checking this one. Mm-hmm. Because otherwise there's a chance that they'll like all wait, and that's obviously not a great situation. Yeah. So yeah, you be sure you tell that the 2 people who you're not deck checking can play on as usual, and only the one person is getting deck checked. Now this is another really interesting thing, because what will happen is let's do the deck check, go back, time to pull their lists. Oh wait, because guess what we did? We sorted the lists based on the player A's name, right? So because of that, that means that you need player A's name in order to get the deck lists. And that's a problem if you don't have the results slip. If you have the results slip, it's fine, right? Because you can usually just go in, look at the last name on the results slip for player A, and then you can figure it out where they're supposed to be. So for mid-round deck checks, this isn't as big of an issue. For beginning of round deck checks, it is very important to make sure you say what's player A's name, because you need both the actual person who owns the deck and you need the player A, so you can use that information to find their team's deck list in the deck list storage area. So that's another thing that definitely comes up, and it's definitely a big deal. Because otherwise you have to like go to the scorekeeper and figure that information out, and that takes a lot longer to do. So yeah, if the results slips have not been passed out yet, you're going to need that information too. Mm-hmm.
Some other oddities you can run into there is, let's say I go up to a table and I say, hey David,
yeah,
I'm gonna, you've been randomly selected for a deck check. I'm gonna take this. Your other 2 players can play,
yep,
and that is fine, but I will just be checking this match.
Yep.
Take your deck, run away, everything's fine. David goes to the bathroom.
Ooh.
Does not ask a judge anything.
Ooh. Now, we told you that was a bad idea to do that, didn't we?
So I'm coming back with the deck, and I see that David is also walking back to the table. So now David is a spectator in his own team's match while playing.
Yeah, that's kind of weird.
Whoops.
Yep, shouldn't have not called the judge. You have to make sure you call a judge every time, I guess.
So what do we do?
I mean, like that's what it is. That's what it is. They didn't follow the procedure that we put in place to keep that situation from happening. Then that situation will happen, and it's obviously it's a sad time for whatever player it happens to. But we gotta make sure that we're not cheating somehow or getting access to information that you wouldn't have access to normally.
Yeah, because then David could have access to the matches that are in play, even though he's not going to have access to his own match. And then the other players, he's sort of excommunicated, but then the other players can still... Yeah. It's a nightmare.
The other thing that'll happen is, this is like a completely legit way. Deck checks in individual format events don't have the ability to give you any information, but deck checks in team format events do leak information. Not in team trios necessarily, but if it's team unified constructed or team limited, then that phenomenon that we alluded to earlier, where one player is going to like be shuffling and shuffling and shuffling so that they can have a better idea of what their opponents are playing, is that's basically guaranteed to happen in a deck check situation, right? Because there's a very real chance that like the match will be over by the time that the deck check comes back. So yeah, that's a thing, and it's unfortunate that is the case. But again, there's nothing we can really do. The only alternative would be that either we don't do deck checks at all, or we make everybody wait.
Only do mid round.
So yeah, it's not an ideal situation, but it is something that is a thing that you have to be aware of right now.
Yeah. So, you don't have to say, oh, well, you can't go to the bathroom. You must sit there. But just remind players that if they need to go, call for a judge still.
Yeah.
Just because, it might not be something you think of. You could just say, oh, well, that judge is taking my deck. He'll probably be 5 minutes. And
no, I mean, to be fair, stuff like that doesn't generally happen in individual format events.
No.
For the most part, players are going to know that they can't just leave whenever they want to if the round clock is running.
Sure.
But at team format events, there's more chances for stuff to get screwed up, which is, obviously that's the nature of the beast, because it's newer, it's different.
So I would say in that case, just check to see what your event wants.
Yeah.
Because you could say that, maybe, well, now this team can't talk, these two players can't talk to that player, or it could get very messy.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. It's an awkward situation all around.
So check with team lead, head judge, things like that before hopefully before you find yourself in that situation. Are you really just going to mope about this again?
No, I'm actually looking something up. You can go on ahead with the next point.
David right now is Googling GP Toronto.
No, this is an important thing. I want to make sure I'm saying. So this is another difference between team format events and normal events. Did you know that how many rounds is in a GP, Dalton?
How many rounds in a GP?
Yeah.
You have 9 on day 1. Then you have 6 on day 2, and then cut to top 8, or rather 9 before cuts.
Yeah.
6 top 8.
1. Yeah. But did you know that it's different for GPs?
For teams?
For team formats.
8?
Yeah. So
and
for
5?
For team format GPs, it's less. The number of rounds in a day 1 is only 8. So that would be for limited, and I believe it's constructed too. That's why I was trying to look this up. So we'll just have oh, come on. This is one of the things I find very frustrating. Like this is one of the things that I do not have like on my phone that I can just look up. You kind of have to like go through a few different things. So yeah, day 1 is 8 rounds of Swiss, and that is both team format constructed and team format limited. And then there on day 2 there are 6 Swiss rounds.
Was it still 6? Okay.
It is still 6.
That makes sense for draft.
It is still 6 for a constructed format, because that's what Toronto is.
Oh yeah.
Now, is it still 6 for the limited formats?
That would make sense. The last one I attended was Grand Prix. The last one I attended and paid attention to that was Grand Prix Indy. No, that was individual.
Was it?
Yeah.
Oh gosh, it was.
So GP Columbus here.
GP Columbus
about a month ago was a team sealed.
Yeah. And yeah, it's 6 rounds on day 2 in both cases, team sealed and team constructed.
Okay.
So this is remember people, if you don't know for sure, just look it up. As setting that good judge example on looking it up when you're not sure.
And as a judge, players are going to ask you all the time, oh, well, does my X2O, do I make it? Or,
X2, yes.
I have 37 points between all 3 of us. They're going to come up with so many weird questions about GPs, whether or not they day 2.
With GPs, you can tell them for sure, because every team with the X2 record, or the top 40 teams in team formats, advances to the second day. Now, getting into the top 4, and yes, you heard me right, I said top 4, because that is what it is in a team format event. It is not top 8, it's top 4. That is what I was thinking of when I was wondering if the second day was 1 round shorter. It is 1 round shorter, but the 1 round is in the top 8.
Because
they cut to the top 4 instead of the top 8. So that is another interesting difference. And let me tell you a little bit about team limited format events. It's really weird. what they do for the top 4. So like usually the top 8 is a draft, right, for a normal event, right? But obviously they can't do that for a top 4 because there's 12 people. So they do like a team draft, and then they do another team draft after it when they get to the top 2. So it's really weird.
So top 4 they do one, and then top 2 they do one.
So
nice.
Yeah, go to your like nearest team limited event and watch that. It's wild. So obviously that takes a lot more time.
Oh boy.
But there's one less round because there's no top 8.
Well, and you need it if you're gonna do 2 drafts.
Yeah. So yep, that is the other kind of interesting thing about how team formats work is that the number of rounds is different. Star City Games obviously has their own proprietary stuff. The GP stuff is set by Wizards and their documents. So it's different in team format GPs than it would be in a normal.
Yeah. So
GP.
If your event knows beforehand what it's going to be, that might be worth just noting.
Yeah.
But otherwise, you're not guaranteed to know what makes day 2. So be happy.
So that is everything that I was going to talk about. Did you have anything else that you were interested in talking about? Any team formatting awesomeness? Maybe you were looking for a standard player and you wanted to put the call out to all our viewers?
If we had the judging for the win team, you would certainly play Legacy. Is that fair to say?
Yeah. Hard yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I would call dibs on Legacy on the basis that I own the Legacy cards.
I'd give that to you. Okay. I own cards that are legal in Legacy.
Yeah.
How does that sound?
Do you own the deck that you're going to play? Because if you're on my team, you're going to be playing a tier 1 deck.
I'm about $800 short of owning my deck.
Oh, you can get dredged for only $250. That's what I heard.
Without Lion's Eye Diamond. So if anyone wants to trade me some City of Traders.
Yeah.
So
you said you have 1 though, right?
I'd be happy to do Modern.
Okay. See, that's pretty. I hear Standard's actually a very good format.
I can do Standard.
I heard Standard is actually a very good
I have this
format.
very fun Sultai Explorer deck.
I'd be playing Control.
Like, it's kind of considered.
Some coming of blue-white Control is what I hear.
See, I'm not a scrub.
That deck is good now. That deck is actually legit good.
Oh, blue-white Control? Yeah, it's scary. I hate it when Control's the meta.
Oh, come on, man. Don't play Magic during any block between, like, Time Spiral and, like, Aura, basically.
Yeah, if Control makes up at least 10% of the meta, I don't want to play.
No. So you're the people who Wizards is appeasing by making all these bad Control cards. Okay, got it.
It's not that I'm appeased or not. Like, I'll still play it. I'll still go to my store and have fun on.
But I won't have as much fun as if.
But I won't have as much.
Decks.
See, it's not all aggro. I just want to be able to play.
You want those one-dimensional aggro.
I want to be able to play.
Hey, did you know that if you play against Control, you're guaranteed at least 4 turns?
Sometimes it's all you need. Turn 1 Emrakul.
So that is all of our content that we had for you guys tonight. I hope everybody had an awesome and exciting time. And once again, if you are interested in hearing more, learning more, go to any of the other Judging for the Win networks, which is linked at the bottom of the Twitch page. Hope everybody had an awesome evening, and we will see you next time. Bye.